I saw his name on my phone. I did not answer for 10 years. I was making dinner. The room was quiet. The fan made a soft sound above me. It was a normal night. Then my phone rang. I looked at the screen. My hand stopped. I could not move. It was my brother. I did not save his number, but I knew it. I knew it too well. My heart started to beat fast. I felt cold in my hands. Why now? I said to myself. The phone kept ringing. I watched it. I did not touch it. 10 years. We did not talk for 10 years. Not a message, not a call, nothing. The call stopped. The room became quiet again. But it was not the same quiet. I looked at the phone. I waited. Then a message came. I opened it slowly. Dad is in the hospital. I read it again and again. My chest felt tight. I sat down on the chair. The food in the pan started to burn. I could smell it, but I did not move. I only looked at that message. Dad is in the hospital. I closed my eyes. I told myself, it is not my problem. But my mind did not listen. A picture came to me, a broken glass on the floor, my brother's loud voice, my father's angry face, and me, standing there, holding something in my hand, shaking. That was the last day. That was the day I left. I stood up and turned off the stove. The food was already ruined. Just like that day, I thought. I walked to the window. The city lights were bright. People were still outside. Everything looked normal. But inside me, nothing was normal. My phone was still in my hand. I opened the message again. Dad is in the hospital. I wanted to reply. I really did. I typed, how is he? Then I stopped. I deleted the words. I typed again. Which hospital? I stopped again. My fingers felt heavy. I remembered his face, my brother. The last time I saw him, he looked at me like I was a stranger. No, not a stranger, like I was someone who hurt him. I sat on the floor. I put my head on my knees. Why now? I whispered. The phone stayed quiet. No more messages, no more calls. But my mind was loud. I could hear his voice from the past. You only think about yourself. That was what he said. I closed my ears, but it did not help. I stood up again. I walked in small circles. I did not know what to do. Call him back? No, ignore it. I already did that for 10 years. I looked at the message one more time. This time I did not feel angry. I felt scared. What if I am too late? I took a deep breath. My hand moved slowly. I opened the chat. I stared at the empty box. I typed one word. Where? I looked at it for a long time. Then I pressed send. I sat on the floor for a long time. My phone was still in my hand. After a few minutes, he replied, City General Hospital. That was all. No name, no extra words. Just like him, simple, cold. I looked at the message. My chest felt heavy. City General Hospital. I knew that place. It was not far. I could go. But my body did not move. Instead, my mind went back. Back to that day. The day everything broke. It was a rainy afternoon. I remember the sound of the rain on the window. I remember the smell of wet clothes. I came home late. I opened the door quietly. But they were already arguing. My father and my brother. Their voices were loud. Too loud. You lost all the money, my brother shouted. I did this for the family, my father said. It was not your choice alone, my brother said. I stood at the door. I did not go in. I heard every word. The business was gone. The money was gone. Everything was gone. I knew things were bad, but I did not know it was this bad. I walked into the living room. They both looked at me. No one smiled. No one said hello. Where were you? My father asked. His voice was hard. I was at work, I said. You are always at work, he said. I did not answer. My brother looked at me. "You knew this, right?" he asked. I froze. "What?" I said. "The problem, the money. You knew," he said. I looked at the floor. I did know, a little. My father told me before. He asked me not to tell anyone. So I kept quiet. I started. "You knew," my brother shouted. "You said nothing." His eyes were red. His voice was shaking. "You let this happen." "That is not true," I said. "I was trying to help." "Help?" he laughed. "You call this help?" He walked closer to me. "You only care about yourself," he said. That sentence, it cut deep. "I did this for all of us," my father said again. "No," my brother said. "You did this for yourself." "Stop it," I said. But no one stopped. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavy. I could not breathe. Then it happened. My brother hit the table. A glass fell to the floor. It broke. The sound was sharp. Everything went quiet for 1 second. Just one. Then my father looked at me. "You knew," he said again. This time his voice was soft, but it hurt more. "You did not tell your brother." I felt something break inside me. "I was trying to protect you," I said. "No," my brother said. "You were protecting yourself." I could not take it anymore. "I am not the bad one," I shouted. "I did not lose the money. I did not start this." My voice was loud. My hands were shaking. My brother looked at me. "So you think this is not your problem?" he said. I did not answer. Because maybe that was true. Maybe I did think that. My father sat down slowly. He looked tired. Very tired. "Enough," he said, but it was too late. I picked up my bag. "I am leaving," I said. No one stopped me. No one said my name. I walked to the door. My hand was on the handle. I waited, just 1 second. Maybe someone would call me. Maybe someone would say, "Stay." But no one did. So I opened the door, and I left. Back to now. I was still sitting on the floor. My eyes were wet. I did not know when I started crying. "I really left," I said softly. "I never went back. Not once." I looked at my phone again. City General Hospital. 10 years, no calls, no messages. And now this. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak. I walked to my room. I opened the closet. I took out a small bag. I put some clothes inside. I stopped. I looked at the bag. "Am I really going?" I asked myself. No answer came. But this time, I did not sit down again. I closed the bag. And I stood there, very still, very quiet. But something inside me started to move. I did not sleep that night. I lay on my bed. My eyes were open. The room was dark, but my mind was full. I kept thinking about the hospital, about my father, about my brother, and about that day. Every word came back, every look, every sound. I turned to the left, then to the right. But nothing changed. At 3 a.m. I sat up. "I will go," I said. My voice was quiet, but this time I did not stop myself. In the morning I left early. The air was cool. The streets were still half empty. I carried a small bag. It felt light, but my heart felt heavy. On the bus, I sat by the window. I looked outside. People walked fast. Cars moved past me. Everything kept going, but I felt stuck. I took out my phone. I opened our chat. No new messages. I wanted to ask more. "Is he okay? Is it serious?" But I did not type anything. I did not know how to talk to him. Not anymore. I tried to think of what to say. "Hi." No, too cold. "How are you?" No, too strange. "I am sorry." Too late. I closed my eyes. I forgot how to talk to my own brother. The bus stopped. I got off. The hospital was in front of me. City General Hospital. It looked the same. White walls, glass doors, people going in, people coming out. Some were crying, some were quiet. I stood across the street. I did not move. This is it, I told myself, but my feet stayed still. What if he is angry? What if he does not want to see me? What if I say the wrong thing again? I took one step forward, then I stopped. My hands felt cold. I held my bag tighter. Then I saw him. He was standing near the entrance. My brother. I almost did not recognize him. He looked thinner. His hair was shorter. There were lines on his face. He looked tired. Very tired. He was looking down at his phone. Just like me. For a moment I thought about turning away. He did not see me yet. I could still leave. I could still go back. But then, he looked up, and he saw me. We both froze. No one moved. The world felt quiet again. Just like that day. He did not smile. I did not smile. We just looked at each other. Like two strangers. But not strangers. Something in between. I wanted to say something, anything. But my mouth did not open. He walked toward me, slowly, step by step. I could hear his footsteps. Each step felt loud in my chest. He stopped in front of me. Not too close, not too far. For a few seconds no one spoke. Then he said, "You came." His voice was low, not angry, not warm, just tired. I nodded. "Yes," I said. My voice was small. Another silence. Long. Heavy. I looked at him. I started, but I could not finish. The words were stuck. He looked at me too, like he wanted to say something, but he did not. So we just stood there, between the past and the present, between leaving and coming back. Then he turned. "This way," he said, and I followed him. We walked inside the hospital. The air was cold, the lights were bright. Everything smelled clean. Too clean. I followed him, step by step. We did not talk. The hallway was long, too long. I looked at the floor, then at the walls, then at his back. I wanted to say something, but I stayed quiet. He stopped in front of a door. Room 307. He put his hand on the handle, but he did not open it. Not yet. "He is awake," he said. I nodded. My throat felt tight. He looked at me. For the first time his eyes stayed on mine. "They said he waited," he said. "Waited?" I asked. He nodded. "For you." I felt something break again, but this time it was softer. He opened the door, slowly. The room was quiet, very quiet. I saw him, my father. He was lying on the bed. His face was pale, his hair was more grey. He looked smaller, not like before. For a moment I couldn't move. This man. Was he really my father? Then he turned his head. He saw me. His eyes changed. Slowly. He smiled. A small smile, but real. "You came," he said. The same words, but different. I walked closer. My legs felt weak. I stood next to the bed. I looked at him. I did not know what to say. I started. My voice broke. All the words I prepared, they were gone. "I am sorry," I said. That was all, just 4 words. But it felt like everything. My eyes filled with tears. "I am sorry," I said again. I left. I did not call. I did not come back. My voice shook. I thought I was right. I looked down. But I was just afraid. The room was quiet. No one spoke. Then I felt a hand. My father's hand. He touched mine. It was warm, but weak. "It's okay," he said softly. I shook my head. "No, it's not." Behind me I heard a sound. My brother. "I am sorry too," he said. I turned around. He was looking at the floor. "I said things I should not say," he said. "I was angry. I blamed you." He looked at me. "I hurt you." I did not speak. I just listened. He took a step closer. "I thought you left because you did not care," he said. His voice was low. "But now, I think—" He stopped. "You were hurting too," he said. My chest felt tight again. "I did care. I said. I just did not know how to stay. Silence. But this time, it was not heavy. My father looked at both of us. His eyes were calm. Family is not easy, he said. We make mistakes. We say bad things. He paused, then he smiled a little. But we stay. No one spoke, but something changed, slowly, quietly. I looked at my brother. He looked at me. This time, it did not feel like before. The distance was still there, but it was smaller. I moved my hand. Slowly. I held his arm. He did not move away. And for the first time in 10 years, we stood in the same room, not as strangers, but as family. I stayed at the hospital that day, and the next day, and the day after that. Time felt slow, but also fast. My father slept a lot. Sometimes he woke up, sometimes he talked. His voice was still weak, but it was steady. My brother and I took turns. He stayed in the morning, I stayed in the afternoon. At night, we both stayed. At first, we did not talk much. We only talked about small things. Did he eat? Yes. Did the doctor come? Yes. Is he sleeping? Yes. Simple words, short answers. But it was a start. One night, my father was asleep. The room was quiet. Only the sound of the machine. Beep, beep, beep. I sat on the chair. My brother stood near the window. After a long time, he spoke. "Do you still live in the same place?" he asked. I looked up. "No," I said. "I moved 2 years ago." He nodded. "Is it good?" he asked. "It's quiet," I said. Then I smiled a little. Maybe too quiet. He gave a small smile. Just a little. But I saw it. Another silence, but not uncomfortable. "I wanted to call you before," he said. I looked at him. "Why didn't you?" I asked. He looked outside. I didn't know what to say. I nodded. "Me too." We both laughed, very softly. It was a small moment, but it felt big. A few days later, the doctor said, "He is better now." Better, not perfect, but better. That word stayed in my mind. On the day we left the hospital, the sun was warm. The sky was clear. My father walked slowly. My brother stood on one side. I stood on the other. We did not say much, but we stayed close. Outside the hospital, we stopped. No one knew what to say next. "Let's eat," my brother said. I looked at him. He looked a little nervous. "Okay," I said. We found a small restaurant nearby. We sat at the same table. For the first time in 10 years. The food came. We started to eat. Slowly. At first it felt strange, like we forgot how to be together. But then, we talked. About small things. About work. About the city. No one talked about that day. Not yet. But it was okay. We did not need to fix everything in one day. After dinner, we walked outside. The night air was cool. "Will you come back again?" my brother asked. I looked at him. I did not answer right away. "I think so," I said. He nodded. This time when we said goodbye, it did not feel like the end. Later that night, I went home. I put my bag down. I sat on my bed. The room was the same. The city was the same. But I was not the same. I picked up my phone. I opened our chat. I typed, "Did you get home?" A few seconds later, he replied, "Yes." Then, "Good night." I smiled. Before I slept, I set a reminder. "Call home, Sunday." I looked at the words. For a long time. 10 years ago, I walked away. I thought I lost everything. But now I know some things do not end. They just wait. That day, I did not fix everything. The past was still there. The pain was still there. But something changed. That day, I started again.